Hi there, my name is Aline. I'm here today representing Renova Foundation and we will present the work we do on irrigation and the water quality of the Doce River after the Fundão Dam firing. First of all, I would like to make a brief introduction about the rupture of the Fundão Dam. In November 2015, in the iron mining dam of the company Samarco, located in the city of Mariana, in the state of Minas Gerais, broken down. Mining tailings flowed across three rivers: the Gualacho River, first river affected, the Carmo River, and the Doce River. The Doce River is one of the most important rivers in Brazil and it crosses two states, Minas Gerais, where the event took place, and Espírito Santo. The Fundão Dam had the 15.6 million cubic meters of tailings. A large part of these tailings were retained along their course until they arrived at the dam of the Resoleta Neves hydroelectric plant. About 20 million cubic meters of tailings flowed the flow of the Doce River, and the part reached the sea on November 22nd, 2015. In March 2016, the term of transaction and conduct adjustment (TTAC) was signed. Was an agreement signed by several entities between federation bodies, state and municipal bodies. The companies Samarco, responsible for the dam that broke, and the maintainers, Vale and the BHP, and the representative of the basin community. The TTAC defined the creation of an entity responsible for the mobilization and to repair the damages caused by the Fundão Dam rupture and also its scope of action. In August 2016, the Renova Foundation was created, comprising 42 programs and projects that are being implemented in the impacted area of the Doce River and the tributaries. The foundation is distributed through the territories where the breach occurred. Now, I would like to give you a brief background on the work. After the Fundão Dam firing, there was a change in the water quality of the Doce River, which made it impossible to use it for irrigation. So we sought to assess whether the river water in the dry period after the Resoleta Neves hydroelectric plants was compromised for irrigation use. We opted for the dry period for this specific use because is when the water from the Doce River is used. I will present to you the objectives of our study. The general objective assess whether there is a causal link between the Fundão Dam rupture and the Doce River quality parameters associated with irrigation during the drought period. The specific objective is survey of the uses granted for the capturing water for irrigation. Because the Doce River is a national river that flows in more than one state, water use concessions are granted by ENA, National Water and the Basic Sanitation Agents, and therefore a water collection license for the irrigation were surveyed at ENA. And the characterization of the water quality of the Doce River in relation to the standards of CONAMA Resolution 357 of 2005, Class 2. CONAMA is the National Environment Council. Among these competence is the establishment of norms and criteria for the licensing of effective or potentially polluting activities. Resolution 357 provides for the classification of bodies of water and environmental guidelines for the classification and establishes this condition and the standards for the discharge of effluent. And evaluation of the water quality standards required for irrigation, comparing the phases before and after the event. Our water quality parameters of CONAMA 357 for irrigation were evaluated in this study. This is the methodology used. The first stage was the definition on the regions to be analyzed. For the 16 regions were adopted along the channel of the Doce River, bounded by the reservoir of the main hydroelectric plants existing along this course. Specifically in this study, the information and analysis are focused on regions 2, 3, and 4, as they are the regions that are after the Candonga hydroelectric plant. The second stage included the definition of the sample period. 2 periods were evaluated pre-breaking between 2010 and 2015, after breakup between 2016 and 2019. In this part of the definition of the parameters to be analyzed, we evaluated the non-compliant parameters in relation to the standards defined by CONAMA Resolution 357 for freshwater Class 2. The main uses of water at ENA were also raised, as I said earlier. First, for this analysis, we used the monitoring network of PMQQS, Renova Foundation Systematic Qualitative Quantitative Monitoring Program, created to monitor the water quality after the rupture, of IGAN, Minor Institute of Water Management, and the environmental agents from the state of Espírito Santo, IEMA, State Environmental Institute, and AGER, State Water Resource. Finally, we also evaluated the Toxic Contamination Index. This index assesses the presence and the concentration of 13 substances in the water, and the data obtained are compared with the limits defined in the respective classes in the case of the Doce River, the Class 2. This map shows the regions. The pink line shows Region 2, Doce River downstream from the Risoleta Neves hydroelectric plants to the Baguari hydroelectric plant. The purple line shows Region 3, downstream from the Baguari hydroelectric plants to the dam after the Aimorés hydroelectric plants. And the green line shows the Region 4, downstream from Aimorés hydroelectric plants to the mouth of the Doce River in Linhares, in the state of Espírito Santo, includes Mascarenhas hydroelectric plants. These red dots represent hydroelectric plants, and the colored dots are sampling points. These are the concessions granted by ENA in the 3 regions, Region 2, 3, and 4. It is noted that irrigation represents the 3rd largest use of water from the Doce River, and the region with largest number of grants for this use is Region 4. The graphs that I will show below were about the parameters often related to the Fundão dam rupture. There was an increase in the concentration of dissolved iron after the Fundão dam rupture, indicating a possible causal link. Regarding aluminum, we can observe that in regions 3 and 4, these parameters was not analyzed, but in region 2, the non-conformities before the rupture were greater than after the rupture. In relation to total manganese before the rupture, there were more non-conformities than after the rupture. Regarding turbidity and the total suspended soils, they suffer the pulses after the dam burst in region 2, total suspended soils, and region 2 turbidity. This graph shows the criteria for assessing the toxic contamination index. It is subdivided into low, medium, and height. We have included an additional class corresponding to very low category, whose parameters meet the maximum limits allowed since GAN, does it not distinguish in the low category the samples that occurred in accordance with the legislation from those that exceed the legal limits by up to 20%. The results showed that the waters of the Doce River in the dry season tended to have a very low classification in all regions evaluated. These are the conclusions of the study. In the drought period prior to the breach, 15 parameters were recorded with at least one non-conformity in relation to CONAMA Resolution 357 for freshwater class 2. After the breach, 17 parameters were identified with at least one non-conformity. Before the breach, the non-conformities presented 6.80%, about 3,800 water analysis, and after the breach, 7.1%, about 7,100 water analysis of extrapolation of the legal limits. It observed here that the number of analyses doubled to the breach with the creation of the PMQQS. This may be an explanation of the higher percentage after the breach. The highest number of non-conformities were related to the basic sanitation in all evaluation regions. The greatest number of violation of water quality standards, both in a total number and in percentage, was in region 2. Observed increased dissolved iron concentration in region 2 after the rupture. However, this parameter did not affect the water quality for irrigation. In relation to total manganese, there is a higher peak in 2016 in region 2, with a reduction in concentration in later years. For dissolved aluminum, the causal relationship between the event and change in water quality was not evident. The levels of total suspended soils and turbidity, which suffered pulses after the rupture of the dam regions in region 2, however, returned to low levels in the following years. The impacts on the Doce River resulting from the Fundão dam rupture were more prominent in region 2, mainly during the first year after this event, 2016, with a subsequent general return to pre-rupture conditions. Finally, the Doce River waters for irrigation after the Candonga power plant or Resoleta Neves hydroelectric plant are not compromised by the Fundão dam rupture. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. Let's continue the conversation.